Good morning, everyone. It's Monday, February 13th, and if you were watching the Super Bowl over the weekend, then you know that today's going to be green. As luck has it, when the Chiefs win, markets open higher. So, see what we got today.
Let's not forget about the Valentine's Day rally.
Oh, yes, more astrology to help cope with stocks going up.
Did you say it's hard astrology opinion? Because if you did, I got some for you. The star stream was parallel today, and it had a little bit of a bullish trajectory, but we got a moon. So, yeah, it looks like it's going to be a green day today.
Very nice, very nice. What plays are we entering in and out of this week? Entering or exiting?
Ooh, if you're talking about a really regarded one, I was looking at super far outdated puts on Morgan Stanley, $40 puts, because of that stupid ass E-Trade commercial.
Just because of the commercial? No further.
Oh yeah, no further thesis, Your Honor.
Your Honor. Oh, there you go.
There's a plethora of economic data this week, including the highlight of CPI tomorrow, but there's like 2 to 7 releases of data every day this week. So anything from housing to jobs to CPI. So I think that'll be interesting and probably take some of the wind out of the sails that we've had in the last week or really 5 weeks.
Yep. I'm not seeing anything particularly interesting for today, but
no, CPI is really it tomorrow, and then more housing and unemployment on Wednesday and Thursday, and some of the manufacturing data even. But just, yeah, it'll be Valentine's Day rally or red in the streets.
Valentine's Day sadness, perhaps. We'll see.
It is red. That's their color, red and pink.
I'm going to play Coca-Cola earnings tomorrow.
How are you playing
Keep an eye on it today. Get, I don't know, $60 calls. I think it's going to do what Pepsi did, to be honest with you. People love that stuff.
Well, what's the is there anything going on with Coca-Cola, or is it just the same brand that it's always been? It seems like the epitome of a boomer stock.
Yeah, I mean, I played Pepsi earnings just because I'm like, yeah, people are still drinking Pepsi. So, yeah, I just think it's going to have a nice, I don't know, just a nice bump up like Pepsi did.
The only thing I would say is Pepsi's business is a little more rounded, if you will, because they have a large snack component with Lay's and whatnot. So it still does well, but I think they may have maybe some more pricing power than just beverages. So that may be something to look for. It may not be as good. Coke's a very flat and level boomer stock. You know, it doesn't do much, but it pays a nice dividend.
Yeah. Just been kind of going with my gut lately, and it's been working. So
I have nothing short term, but long term, I'm increasing my $5 2024 calls for Pitney Bowes. Anyone interested in the whole Kurt Wolf situation that's going on with them?
I would say you got the floor. Go ahead and explain your thesis.
Not too much of a thesis, but Kurt Wolf is a big activist investor, and he's bought a large stake in Pitney Bowes with the attempt of trying to get more of his own board members. His premise is that the company is being run poorly with bad capital allocation, and there's three sectors in Pitney Bowes. He wants the two succeeding sectors, or the two sectors that are doing really well, to have more capital allocation, and he wants Pitney Bowes to sell off their e-commerce sector. So right now they're just kind of going back and forth, back and forth. But I think when push comes to shove, usually the activist investor usually wins, and I'm hoping there's going to be a rally. Pitney Bowes is just filled with a bunch of old guys, so a fresh outlook would probably be good for them.
And thank you for sharing. I don't have an opinion either way. But Hardy, I see you signed in. How was your weekend? What's your views on the market?
Could go up, could go down.
All right, everyone. That was today's call. Have a nice.
I did post the plays for Monday at the start of the weekend instead of at the end of the weekend, so I'll bring them over into the chat so you can do any further due diligence.
Always helpful.
Forgive me, Noah has been particularly fussy last night. If anyone has suggestions for getting a baby to drop roughly 2 4-ounce bottles overnight, I'm happy to hear them.
You may have to try 3 soon, it sounds like.
It's growing. Can't stop it. All right, so plays are down in the chat. The most interesting one might be Capital One 115 puts March 17 maturity for $4.20 or less.
Hey, those who watched, what'd you think of Workday's Super Bowl commercial?
Embarrassingly, if it was in the second half, I fell asleep earlier.
I mean, the fact that no one seems to comment suggests that they wasted $7 million plus the cost of production.
Bearish.
Is that the one where it's calling people at work a rock star?
Yeah, it had like Ozzy Osbourne and a bunch of other people, so I mean they wasted a lot of money on it then.
Yeah, I mean, I like an old rock bop or two, but I'm not going to go base my HR platform around it.
Well, if it's got Ozzy mumbling, I may have to go look. You know.
He didn't mumble though. He was legible. You could understand him very clearly. It was impressive.
No, that's the AI of him talking. You'll understand him
Calls on
15 years
Ozzy.
ago.
He's gotten a lot more understandable since he started getting on the legal stuff.
Ooh, we're pretty slow for a morning talk. I guess it is Monday though.
It's the Monday after a
Super
Super
Bowl,
Bowl,
yeah.
so you've got people
It's
who
the
are
Monday after Super Bowl, and it's also the fact that for some reason, even though this is pinned, you can't find it on the WallStreetBets page.
That would make things challenging.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. I've been having to not quite go the deep dive that Genome said, but I got to pick on you opinion. That's usually how I find it in the morning. And I have not been getting the notifications either.
Yeah, well, as much as I love you guys stalking my profile, we might end up moving to Discord or Twitch or somewhere else in the event this does go down. So make sure you get on those platforms early.
No doubt. I mean, what do you guys think about it just riding this descending channel? Like the overall markets, like it being at the top of the channel, the Fed's got it kind of boxed in. So
Keep in mind, CPI is coming out tomorrow. ICANN allegedly bought a large, was it put position on E-minis. So that may be an indication of what I think is going to happen.
Makes sense, because if you look at the last couple times we've topped out, you had over the next 5 sessions, you had like in SPY, like a solid 10% pullback. It was pretty swift. So that would line up with basically, what is it, tomorrow? CPI?
Yeah, at 8:30. Correct.
So that would give you potential run up today and into that, where you could have some downside volatility if it's going to respect that upper end of that channel, descending channel. If it breaks it, I mean, you have a lot of people that are not position long, is kind of the argument, obviously.
Tip, if you're trying to find a talk on mobile, if it's on mobile, you just go to search WallStreetBets for talk and sort by past hour, and it pops up. It is a pain in the ass to find, but that's another way to do it.
Opinion has nice bushes outside of his house, so I'm good with my method. Thank you.
I did some deep digging into BlackRock's books over the weekend. Man, they got a lot of toxic debt on there.
So just a quick brief. ICANN bought $50 million in S&P puts at the 40-50 strike. So that's SPX 40-50 puts, I think, expiring on the 17th, which is this Friday. So the thesis that everyone else is assuming is that ICANN is expecting the January CPI report to tank the market. So I'm gonna see if I can buy 20 Delta puts for February 15 expiration on SPY. Maybe 0.2% of my portfolio, just to, on the off chance he's right, my puts may go up 400 to 500%.
What were those strike prices, Hardy?
I don't know what the strike will be, because the idea basically is it's a 20 Delta put. So it's a 20% chance at the point that I take the trade that the put will be in the money at expiration.
SPX, or what are you thinking?
I'm probably going to do SPY, a little bit more liquid.
Hey guys, Mike here. So I'll tell you what, we got a loaded week this week. I mean, when it comes to earnings, especially economic data from Tuesday through Thursday, I mean, it is unbelievable how long and how much economic data is coming out. But especially what we got? CPI. And this will be probably the most interesting we've seen in a long time, because of the new calculations, the new weights that have been put on certain things. And so who knows what this is going to do, but I'll show you the projections and stuff on that. And then we'll go into a couple of the charts. But one thing I wanted to show you today was, I've been needing to put this out there for a while. It's been busy weeks, and I didn't want the videos to try to be too long. But it's something to understand. If you got in the market after 08, or especially 2020, right, you're probably under this kind of like belief that, you know, markets can.
Why the heck are you playing a video for us?
So here's the deal, Ninja. If you have a play, feel free to share it and then share the thesis following the play.
So on earnings, you got Wyndham Hotels on Wednesday. I went balls deep, researching them. Way heavy institutional ownership. Like TD Ameritrade says they have 88 million shares float on their like Fintel whatever shit. It's like 115 million or something. 4 companies have like a third of the float, and then there's a bunch of companies that have millions of shares right behind them. So it doesn't have much. It's a thinly traded stock, like 600,000 shares. So I basically tweeted 31-minute analysis, like 6 points. Number 6 being WallStreetBets wants to bury some, like 5 reasons why this stock's grossly overvalued. COVID support almost $14. It was trading at 76 after hours on Friday. Somebody bid it up one share to like $79, but that's coming up on Wednesday. So you can get really cheap, like lotto options basically is what I have into Friday. So you get earnings exposure and you get Friday expiration. And the amount of big hedge funds that are in this shit, like T. Rowe Price has a couple million. Fucking State Street 2.5 million. BlackRock, Vanguard both have like 8 million shares. But there was one that had 11 million shares that blew out of about 5-6 million shares last a year ago. So every year they update. And
Is this the Wyndham guy again?
Oh yeah.
Is this the same guy that keeps pumping Wyndham? And
Yeah,
then says he had a bad stay.
Their earnings are on Wednesday.
Are you going to talk about your recent experience at Wyndham?
Nah, it's already out there. I mean, that's one of 5 reasons, I think. I don't think Airbnb's priced into that stock. I think it's overvalued sector-wise.
Are you saying you're bearish on it then?
Yeah, I mean, I posted my positions. I have lotto plays, weeklies. You can get dirt cheap on it.
So you're saying Airbnb, which has been around for how many years, is not priced into a hotel stock?
I ran cross-country with the co-founder of Airbnb. He did the interesting side note, but no, what I'm saying is that the millennial generational switch to Airbnb and Vrbo was happening over a decade ago. People nowadays, they like when they're planning trips, they plan destination trips to like Airbnb style stuff. They're picking that stuff months in advance. I'm not even talking about my story and lawsuits.
It's funny you say that. I have something that looks at Airbnb bookings just to get a sense of what's available, what's not. And a lot of properties went unbooked over Christmas and New Year's for Airbnb. So I wonder to what extent the trend you describe is reversing, if it hasn't already.
Well, so I've been licensed in real estate coming up on 8 years in Georgia and Florida, and the biggest bubble I pointed out is going to be the Airbnb trend. I saw for years, like before, like the rates were even going up, we had low rates. The trend was like, oh, I'm getting myself an Airbnb and I'm gonna rent it out. Well, that was before COVID hit, so people are now a little more. I think people are a lot more poor than they put out there. Like the
How
friends
leveraged were those short-term rental buyers?
Right. So there's a lot of people that are overpaid for Airbnb style properties, and they're gonna have high vacancy rates, is what you're pointing out. There's somebody that like is suing Airbnb out of Arizona that said like they had over 50 properties that were vacant despite the Super Bowl. But I mean, again, that's their decision. You know what I mean? It's a market. But my point is, Airbnb is bringing liquidity and a lot of put my shit aside with Wyndham Hotels and lawsuits. I think that stock, look at the 5-year chart on it. It looks like a head and shoulders. And the way stocks have been canceled lately, like I said, there's so much concentration of hedge funds in here that if people actually went and started selling this and it got in the news, the stock would be at fucking $5. I'm not even joking.
All I know is I'm impressed with how many Reddit profiles you've created to be able to shill this stock.
I accidentally created one with my real name when I first joined here. And I actually had a play on shorting. I never put the company out, but it was Zillow. Zillow tanked after that.
So
you do know there's just constant bad sentiment with Airbnbs. There's just going to be more, I guess, laws or regulation on just for Airbnb holders, right?
The bad sentiment seems to be coming primarily in the US and certain European cities. Airbnb in Asia, at least Bangkok, that's been my experience, is still quite good.
And they report earnings tomorrow, Airbnb. So if you're looking at that inflection point, you want to pick a side, that could be a mover, right?
I do also want to point out that Airbnb has not yet announced layoffs. So it may very well happen that they have shit earnings, shit performance. But because they announced layoffs and have a strong growth trajectory, the price moves.
I mean, those companies, I mean, their profit margin, do you know they're taking like 10-15% of each gross booking? It's something like that. Verbo and them.
That's their revenue.
Right.
So if they manage to still lose money despite how big a cut they're taking, how
But
many
again,
more hosts
so
will?
thanks for pointing that out, because that'll be a good barometer of coming into Wyndham on Wednesday. And again, I know I apologize for people that are tired of me talking about that, but this is the week, and there are some lotto plays on that. But so if there's a supply glut in Airbnb and high vacancy rate, what does that portend for, standard hotel chains?
So I probably wouldn't use Airbnb as a barometer for Wyndham. I would use Marriott, who reports tomorrow morning.
Bam. On it.
Ticker
Tuesday.
MAR. Also, if I remember correctly, Wyndham, are they part of the Wynn Resorts brand? Or
No,
is that completely separate?
separate. I used to work for the resorts brand,
All right,
but
thank
it's
you.
separate.
Who's another major hotel? IHG, I think? Intercontinental Hotels?
Yeah, IHG.
So they come out on the 21st, and interestingly, they dumped on Friday. Why did they dump? Do they have... Okay, someone bought 5% in them. That's why. So
IHG and Hilton are pretty big.
the point is you
call,
can use each successive hotel announcement to project the outcome of the hotel chains that have yet to announce. So Wyndham appears to be number 2 in the set of 4. Marriott, Wyndham, IHG, Hilton.
I found some nice ETFs to track that too, if you guys are interested in them. That if that sector's, let's say it's on a miss, starting with Marriott, which that was a great call. I added that. That's hovering near highs, 5-year.
Well, here's how I see it.
Yeah.
If Marriott and Wyndham react in sympathy with each other, it's a lot cheaper to buy a Wyndham straddle today based on Marriott's outcome tomorrow morning. Because you won't necessarily suffer Ivy crush on Wyndham. But if Marriott does poorly, Wyndham moving in sympathy with Marriott would push the price the same way Marriott does. So your straddle, if you bought one, wouldn't lose a lot of IV because of the earnings report, but you can still benefit from the delta. Does that make sense?
Oh, dude, the earning, like, there's no IV pricing these options. I mean, if you're pricing a $10 move on, you can take $100 play and you're into like 10 contracts. You know what I mean? It's super cheap into earnings.
Let's have a look. You're right, it is.
Like I posted my positions, I think, in the chart. Most of those you can buy at like 5 cents. Like there's no bid.
They also have open interest in the hundreds, so that would be a problem for me because liquidity would be out the door. But for everyone else listening, February 17 expiration, expected price movement is, let's see, $1 up to 60 cents, so $1.60 against the price of Wyndham.
Yeah, I picked up 175 put, snagged that for like 65 cents the other day.
So the expected move is basically 70, let's call it 75 to 70, is that right? $75 to $78 price. So theoretically, if you think the price will move beyond $75 to $78 at earnings, buy a strangle. If you think it won't, sell the strangle. That's how I would play it. And let's see, just going by previous earnings, I don't see too many major jumps prior, so it implies that, oh no, here's one. So the Marriott hotel earnings can impact Wyndham, which is to your advantage.
Well, yeah, I mean, if Marriott's flat or up, yeah, I think that's bad for Wyndham for my short play on it. If Marriott tanks, Wyndham I've seen make measured moves to $10-15 in recent earnings reports. So post market it was at 76. So, down to 66, down to 60, something like that. There's not a lot of price discovery down below 60 though. That's where it got into that COVID. It just tanked straight to 14. So that's what I'm saying. Like the institutional exposure on this is like there are 115 million or something shares long to TD Ameritrade says there's an 88 million float on it. So that's weird. And then I'm digging into BlackRock. I was looking at
Are you sure it's 115 million shares on Wyndham? They only have 88 million shares ever, unless it's a different class of stock.
Yes, look up. Let me find a link. Hold on.
Let's see. Wyndham is WH. Let's hop on FinViz. Wyndham is showing 89.5 million. FinViz is showing 89.5 million shares outstanding, 86.94 million shares float, which implies, let's see, institutional ownership 94%, and the short interest is 3.7 million. So
doesn't that just sound like ETF positions, Hardy? It doesn't sound like anything crazy to me, right? Like all those investment places hold those positions for their mid cap or small cap, whatever Wyndham is, right?
You said that Wyndham has 94% institutional ownership?
that's what FinViz is saying.
My gosh. Like, how much liquidity? Like, I get you hate this company, dude, but at a certain point, you gotta look at this thing and realize that it's not gonna plummet to the bottom of the earth.
Well, COVID support is $14 on it, is what I'm saying. There's not a lot of price discovery below about. So like Bank of America went from like 300,000 shares, which is like, I don't know, call it 30 million, something like that, roughly, to like they added over 1 million shares last quarter. There's a lot of funds that have like 4 or 5 million shares, a lot of pension funds that have like 150, like state of this retirement, 150,000. Those funds, they don't get out. Like people don't redeem that shit till like stocks tank. Dude, I dug into BlackRock's book. So if you look at that thing, I think if you scroll to the top there's something there where it talks about shares outstanding. It's like 110 million or something like that. Let me go scroll through it and find it. I'm on mute. Hold on.
Yes. Scroll for a while.
Can we talk about CPI tomorrow? Anybody got any plays, any calls up to the 414?
Feb
Anybody looking at
1520 Feb 1520 Delta puts, buying them as close to market close today as I can, but I'm only putting 0.2% of my portfolio here.
Now, with all the stuff we've had, like we had that ridiculously high jobs growth report for January. Are we expecting CPI to go above or below what the expectation is?
It doesn't really matter because the CPI formula has changed, the different weights that are used which make up the formula. So I suspect it wasn't tuned well, and because it wasn't tuned well, it'll be dramatically different than what was expected. Either
Hardy,
way,
you said 420? Fed 15?
no.
Strike.
SPY February 15 expiration puts at a 20 delta, meaning whatever
gotcha.
strike contract has a delta of 20 or as close to 20 as possible. And I intend to enter as close to market close today as possible, because the announcement for CPI is tomorrow morning before market open.
So check this out. That link, if you scroll right under the price, it's in that first thing. It says institutional ownership over 100 million shares. The float's 88 million. See that number?
Link. Let's see.
It's 102 million institutional ownership shares versus 88 million float. So think of the GameStop short setup, right? you had it overly shorted, and they were multiple times short the float, right?
Yeah,
They're
but which
more than one time.
institution owns the shares? Because if
What?
it's BlackRock that owns any meaningful amount of shares, BlackRock is a known lender of securities.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think I dug into BlackRock. BlackRock's got some serious issues. Do you know they have 1 billion shares of Apple? How the fuck's their valuation? 88 billion or something. That position alone's 150 billion, right? I'm just saying, if dude, there's some ghost hedge funds I dug into that added 1.5 million shares of Wyndham a quarter ago above these prices. They had 1.5 million, they had like 1.7 and added 1.5 million shares. So like this stock's just getting bought by like zombie bots that are just long this sector. I'm telling you, it's the bear raid of the century. If there's actual news and selling, like I said, we'll have to look at this hotel tomorrow, see what happens there. That's a good call, good barometer.
So for someone who asked in the channel or in the chat, my intent for Marriott was to use it as a signal for Wyndham. So if Marriott does beats earnings or beats expected earnings, Wyndham, Intercontinental, and Hilton may also go up in sympathy with Marriott going up, with the expectation that, hey, travel's back, hotels are making shit tons of money, prices go up. So the advantage of doing it this way, having this pseudo pairs trade, is that you don't have IV crush because the earnings of those companies hasn't yet happened. And so you're able to keep your strangle without losing your shirt because of IV crush.
Also, pointing to that, the CPI factor, I've noticed Wyndham tends to trade in sync with the market. So if the market were to pull back 5% into earnings, I know that'd be a huge number, 3%, 4%. You'd likely see them outsize move the market down. So CPI is to the downside, is what I'm saying. If Icon's right in his put position. So you'd have pressure into earnings, basically.
All right, well, thank you for sharing. So what other plays do we have?
Yeah, thanks for adding insight. Appreciate you guys being fair about it. That Airbnb is an interesting one. There's not a lot of price discovery below 100, so that's sitting at an interesting level.
So Hardy,
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna just change the conversation, going back to the CPI.
Well, quickly then, DNS Cloud asking energy oil plays. I do have puts for ExxonMobil, but I'm waiting for them to cross down below Gamma Max before I actually enter. Mainly because things happened over the weekend and I'm not sure how the market's repricing it.
What things happened over the weekend?
Russia had a new offensive. Putin pledged to sell less oil. Name your pick.
I mean, wouldn't that be bullish for ExxonMobil? Because that means
Precisely,
they have.
which is why I'm holding off buying puts.
I heard BP well blew up. I don't know how true that is, but
it may very well be true. But the reason why I was particularly interested in ExxonMobil is because they are at their Gamma Max, and the last couple times they go to Gamma Max, the price comes back down like 1.5 to 2%.
How fast?
Over 3 weeks, roughly.
I like the oil play as well, by the way. There's another thing. Warren Buffett's 13F is supposed to drop tomorrow or day after tomorrow. And Oxy's been hovering around his buy price for the last week. So I bought some Oxy calls for March based on that.
Hey Hardy, real quick. I played those BP earnings last week just based off of Chevron and Marathon, and that's whenever it skyrocketed. So definitely tread lightly with that. These oil companies are just crushing profits right now.
Someone in the chat saying to get a baby Brezza. Are you talking about the one that makes bottles or the one that sanitizes them? Because the Brezza formula dispenser does not meter out the correct amount of formula, so the kid ultimately is underfed. Also, I serve no erection room temperature formula, not heated formula, and it's been way more convenient, especially since he's gotten used to it.
I do not miss warming up bottles. That was brutal.
But thank you for the suggestion, Rylar. A2 options. So the problem with Marriott specifically is that their earnings happen the same time as CPI. So their earnings could very well be good. But because CPI causes the market to go down, it counteracts the effect of the earnings. Does that make sense? So theoretically, you could buy calls on Marriott, assuming better than expected earnings, and then buy SQQQ calls to hedge against the CPI number being shit. Hopefully that clarifies things for you. Sally Mander, if you look up any of my posts, for the most part on Wall Street Bets, there are links to what Gamma Max is and explaining my whole thesis about institutional options positions. And if you sort the comments by top, I believe the list of plays should be toward the top so you can find it. Dry Damage asking why I think the Capital One play is more interesting. The biggest reason is just it's been a while since they've come across either Delta Neutral or Gamma Max. So this is an instance where Gamma Max and Delta Neutral are fairly close to each other. And the last major time that happened was February 17, 2022, so almost a year ago, at which point it kicked off what amounted to a year-long downtrend. So if that's true, then there's a chance to make some decent money on the descent at Capital One.
Oh my god, yeah, it's kind of surprising how much of like my independence comes from being able to walk.
Anybody have any
Like,
thoughts
also
on
walking
Planeteer?
without
Coming,
with like
they
your
got their
hands
earnings
free
later
is
today.
apparently a luxury.
Palantir?
Yeah, Palantir.
PLTR? Oh,
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be bad.
why I'm grateful that
Is that shit still around?
mild form of a
Yeah,
security
and they're trading at like a $15 billion
like,
valuation, down from a peak of what?
recovery. So like
70 billion? With
Oh no, I came
successive
back after the first week.
share issuances.
They recently got some nice government.
So they're doing dilution
Yeah,
and they're losing value. That's
It's
a
okay.
win-win
It's actually pretty cool.
for
I went
anyone,
in
right?
a wheelchair to navigate all across the airport. Everyone was super helpful. Like if you just indicate on like your flight like check-in that you need a wheelchair, I want to get into like the
Can't imagine why anyone wouldn't want to go to
board
stop
first because then the
that.
flight attendant could help you into your seat and everything. It's actually
Didn't the
so
CEO say,
phenomenal. I'm so
like,
touched that everyone
suck it, we're not
is
gonna
so
change
helpful
anything
when you're clearly
with Palantir and operate as we've been doing.
What was that, Hardy?
Just trying to figure out.
I know that we're really
Someone
fortunate
sent
to
over
end
some
up
data
sending one of my
about
friends in
potential
Iraq, for
CPI,
example. Really had a
but
tough time navigating
it
which
appears.
is unfortunate.
I basically asked
Yeah, we
them what
really
the
do have a pretty good
what
here.
time zone their thesis is based on. And I'll
Okay,
hear back
yeah, so
shortly,
I've
I
been
hope.
away for 2 weeks. That's almost full sprint. How are things on your end?
What type of data?
Oh no.
The friendly story kind.
Ooh. Okay.
While we're waiting for them to respond, what other plays do people have to share? I wouldn't say I'm part of the lizard people. I'm just on the outside looking in.
Of course.
I
He's
think
not one of the lizard people. He's just friends with them.
I think because CPI is tomorrow and everybody knows the market's going to be wild, I think most people here are waiting till after the announcement.
CPI's today?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow.
Like any tomorrow, CPI comes out tomorrow. Yeah, that really doesn't roll off the tongue, does it?
What time?
8:30, so pre-market.
So
if you
what
want to
strike?
enter
What strikes
the
you on
so the
SPY?
current CPI play that I'm doing is a 20 delta put against SPY, entering at around 3:50 p.m. today.
But I mean, that Hardy, you're betting on CPI is going to come in hot then, I'm assuming.
I'm betting that the market will tank as a result of the CPI announcement. Or more accurately,
No
I'm
matter what.
copying Carl Icahnn's trade that CPI will tank in the that market will tank in the wake of CPI announcement.
It's mean I'm well enough to travel.
It's rare
Following the
for
old
Icahn. It's rare for him to buy so many short-dated contracts. So something's up.
So, Hardy, I have a couple of questions about that. One, are we absolutely sure that it was Carl Icahn, or was the trade being misattributed to him?
The
And
trade is to his fund. We don't know if Icahn explicitly ordered the trade, but it definitely the fund did actually make a $15 million trade against short-term SPY puts.
okay, so that's confirmed then. I was not aware. That's what I wanted to.
Yeah. So the news is inflating that Icahn is the one who made the trade. Technically, it was his fund, and it's entirely possible a different analyst within the fund or his son even made the trade, but doesn't matter. The fact that the trade went through and it's this short dated and it's that large and it's tied to this event, it's worth 0.2% of my portfolio to take the risk.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I think it's a fair play to that.
Hardy,
My second question regarding that that particular trade is, wouldn't it make sense for him to kind of take some of that put positioning off at this moment, given that he's probably okay, so on Friday those strikes were at $52 a piece at the beginning of the day. By the end of the day, they had decayed to $42 a piece. And I don't know, I haven't checked it, I haven't logged on yet. I'm guessing they're down even more right now just from the decay. Wouldn't it make sense for him to just take his profits at any given point of time, or he would have taken profits already?
Unlikely, because when you move $15 million worth of contracts, you also move the market.
Fair.
So I think the only way he can reliably exit with any sort of profit is to be able to exercise those contracts.
Great
Wait,
point.
but this is the SPY.
Hey, so Hardy,
Technically he bought the ES minis. So.
If we bleed SPY, like let's say it's a down day, it's 1.5%, 2% down. What's your take then on your thesis of going home short again? Are you still gonna?
I'm still gonna do it because my entire thesis is that Icahnn's fund did it. So if it works out, my 0.2% in risk becomes potentially 1% gain on my overall portfolio. And that's the kind of trades that I make. Lots of relatively small bets that pay off multiples, so that over the course of a year, I'll return like 40% on my cash.
Just want to point out that, this is why we teach moderation. Hardy is taking a very small percentage risk, realizing he has a good chance of losing the entire position. And due to the level of kind of DD that's going on here, I guess it really at this point is just speculation, purely speculation. He's not throwing his entire life savings at one single play.
So that's enough for us to throw it all in if Hardy's doing a little bit.
Yeah, he should.
It's Wendy's or Lambo's.
Yeah, I left that life a long time ago. Siluric saying Twilio earnings Wednesday. Had an emergency executive meeting. Rumors that they're going to announce layoffs. Entirely possible. The problem with layoff announcements, is that they're usually bullish because the company's saving money in the short term, and that's how executives tend to spin it. Yeah, we're being more lean. We're going to be more agile, and that doesn't always work. More importantly, very rarely do layoffs happen once. Usually they come in waves. So there's the first string layoffs and the second string layoffs, maybe a third string if the market truly is that bad. So
Does that apply to Apple?
It's not, well, Apple didn't hire as aggressively as they did as Meta or Google. However, Apple did hire a bunch of contractors for whom they could simply refuse to renew the contracts and effectively create a layoff without actually announcing a layoff, which happened. So I'm going to go with Apple is not going to be as affected as something like Twilio. More importantly, if you're any tech company that's announcing earnings, check the news to see if they announced layoffs. If they have not announced layoffs, assume they will announce layoffs, and how does that affect your thesis on their profitability and whether or not it moons or tanks?
Just remember that whenever layoffs are announced, it's a short-term bullish indicator.
And inverse to win. I would love for ICANN to have paid me, but I'm hoping the play works out, so, I'll post a thanks to his son on Twitter or something. I don't think ICANN himself has a Twitter account.
And in other news, if you are hearing feedback, just back out of the talk and then get back into it, and it goes away.
Can we get another ad for the Discord?
All right. If you guys don't want any interruptions to your daily Reddit talk service, make sure you join the Discord and you can talk all day long, every day, 24 hours, 7 days a week. Join now. The link is in the comments below. There you have it. Was that good enough?
Why are you lowering your voice?
I think he's trying to match I.
Yes, exactly.
All right, can someone please write the SPY play down? I'm not at a keyboard at the moment. It's assuming you're following ICANN into the CPI play. It's SPY 20 delta puts buy as close to market close today for February 15 expiration.
And just so you're aware, 20 delta is not going to have a set strike price. It's going to depend on where that is at the end of the day.
And 20 delta in this case just means that the price, the market has a 20% chance of moving to that price by the expiration. So adjust for your risk tolerance.
Who's making that play? Hardy, is that you?
Yeah, I'm doing it.
Okay.
Oof. Okay, big man.
Not at all. I'm risking an incredibly small amount of money.
Well, it's not about the money you're risking. It's just how confident you are that it's going to go up to the 20 delta today.
It's not. I didn't say it's happening today. I'm
Oh,
buying.
it means it's about tomorrow. So February 15th.
Thank you, MBev, for putting it down. Who else has plays?
So if we know of upcoming layoffs, would you recommend short-term bullish calls around the time they announce?
Well, the problem is you don't know how bad the earnings will be. So take Lyft, for example. Earnings were absolutely terrible, and no amount of layoffs could have saved them. We don't know to what extent other companies will experience a similar phenomenon.
Well, besides the actual earnings, if you know if they're going to announce layoffs on a certain date, would you play some type of calls?
It should, yeah.
Depends on the company. Do you have
How
one in
would they
mind?
refer to cash management?
Yeah, so I'm anticipating two companies, Microsoft and Amazon, doing layoffs around March 19th.
You mean a second round of layoffs each?
I think this would be their third.
Okay.
At least for Amazon, I know this is definitely their third. So Amazon and Microsoft are anticipated to do layoffs around March 19th. It's about a high number for Amazon for sure, and then Microsoft. Slightly less, but I still think, around 1,000. And then Microsoft is also anticipated to do another round April 10th, whether it's part of the March 20th or 19th. Either way, it looks like they're splitting it up.
Well, how big do you anticipate these layoffs being? Because if it's a 1% workforce layoff, then that's not really market moving.
So I've been looking at the Employee Security Department, the Warren in Washington State. So I can only see what Washington's anticipating for layoffs for these companies. So Amazon is showing on March 19th, 2,320 employees. So I don't know if that encompasses everyone or if that just encompasses the Seattle employees.
Understood. So potential calls on Microsoft then, or at least as we approach that announcement date. Okay. Thank you for sharing.
I think other things you might want to look at is look at the past layoffs, see if it's an increase or a decrease in number, and then also look at the data of how the market moved on those.
All right, Fly, floor is yours. What's your place?
Good morning, Wall Street Bets. How y'all doing?
Just the place.
Yes, sir. I got some plays, but can we talk about you always speaking my name real quick before I give me my plays? Like I didn't come here for no disrespect to no one. I didn't mean to disrespect no one. Like you ask for plays, I give you plays. It makes money. I don't claim to always make money. We all lose, but don't be disrespectful when I'm out here talking about why he runs a cell phone store and all that. Man, I make $250,000 a year. I do this shit for fun. So, and I do it for free. And I never meant to disrespect no one. So keep my name out your mouth or come to DC and see me. So my plays are in the chat group. We won't even talk about penny candy.
All right, Will Smith, you got anything else for us?
Someone's upset Eagles lost.
Puts on Tesla though, seriously. I appreciate the floor. Thank you. I just wanted to say my thing. And I hope everybody has a blessed day. I put a couple plays in the chat. I don't really got nothing negative to say or positive. Y'all have a blessed day. I appreciate y'all, Wall Street Bets.
Cool. Well, I have a play, but it's a leap play. I'll just say it since nobody has talked about any other plays. Got a March 15th, 24. So that's 2024. Short on the 340.
Yeah.
And short on the 500. So it's a strangle. And I'm just gonna do 2 contracts.
Twilio just announced that they are planning to lay off 17% of its workforce.
No problem.
So Twitter?
Oh God.
Twilio.
Twilio.
Oh, Twilio.
17% of its workforce.
I hope you dwindle that down a bit. But...
You said 70?
17. 17.
Was that just now? Was that today?
Okay.
He said just announced, so it must have been hot off the press.
9:22 is when I saw the tweet.
Okay, sounds good.
Does it say anything specific regarding like the departments that are mostly affected?
That's fine.
What tweet? Who tweeted that?
Okay.
Is it contract workers or is it full-time employees? Is it mostly HR and marketing? Does it say anything specific regarding that?
This poor guy's got about 6 questions he's got to answer now.
I know. Oh.
No details as to what department. The tweet is from Stock Market News Evan. He's a pretty
Granted, it
good
took a week
reporter
to
when it
like
comes to
really
stock
stop
market
thinking
news.
about work. I even my friends told me to just stop checking the phone.
Cool, thanks.
Oh man, I know. I was like, my projects, my babies.
Hey, Hardy, mad respect, man.
Oh, just got your
Thanks for pointing out some plays today. Good luck too, man. Happy trading.
Your bags be light and your attendees stream.
Yeah, Airbnb, that'll be interesting. They get a nice gap above
Yeah.
if it wants to run into that. And then obviously, you know, the CPI, all that
so
stuff.
actually,
You know,
Monday and Tuesday's 4
you gotta
hours,
watch out
Wednesday,
for some
Thursday,
things
6,
where,
and
you
then
know,
back
you might get a
to
nice move up.
Friday. Yeah.
Oh, whoops.
Morning, everybody. Just had a quick question for the board here. Just trying to figure out if and I don't know if maybe I missed it, if anybody mentioned it earlier, anybody buying calls or puts on some of the betting, sports betting like Penn or DraftKings and the like.
DraftKings earnings are this week, I believe.
Yes, I believe they're coming out on the 16th, actually.
Why are you bullish on the sports betting because of the Super Bowl?
I am a little bit, and as I sit here watch my good old CNBC and how much they've been mentioning how many bets were placed like every second. I'm starting to become a little bullish on DraftKings right now, and especially with all the commercials they had during the Super Bowl. How do you guys feel?
Ooh, you got to go look at that chart of all the people that advertised the Super Bowls last year that got wrecked. I'm just saying.
I mean, if you think that'll affect their next quarter earnings, then yeah, that might be bullish, I guess.
And that's market open, everybody.
I don't have much knowledge on the sports betting. If anybody wants to chime in.
Keep in mind, DraftKings earnings will not include the money they made during the Super Bowl. So it's the fact that they're not bragging about how it's a record year may be an indication that it wasn't.
But that's gonna show up in next quarter, right?
Correct. But what I'm saying is that the fact that DraftKings isn't thumping its chest saying, hey, we've had a record year in sports betting because of this year's Super Bowl tells me that it's probably lower than expected by a moderate amount. Sort of the same way that retail companies didn't brag about how strong Black Friday sales were this year versus last year. The only number that ever really came out was that was a 5% or no 8% year-over-year increase in online sales for Black Friday. No mention of retail sales, brick and mortar sales whatsoever. So in the run-up to that, I'm anticipating companies like Home Depot to miss revenue by 15 to 20% over Q4. Well, I still need to see how the revised earnings expectations come through. But if that's true, and no major layoffs are announced or store closures are announced, there's a very good chance that Home Depot puts that are getting heavier with each day will actually print.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I don't have any firsthand technical data, but I can tell you allegorically as well, just from the area that I've been in and the people that I've been around. Uh, People aren't doing as well, and the sentiment looking forward, especially among the younger generation who are a little bit looser with their money when it comes to impulsive things like betting, there's a much more pessimistic forward-looking sentiment in terms of the economic outlook. So I would tend to agree that I would imagine, especially if DraftKings isn't bragging about anything, that they probably did not have a great quarter, and I would not be bullish on them in the short term.
Is there a way to see in the DraftKings interface how many participants there are in a given league or whatever they're calling a betting space?
That's a good question. I'm not equipped to answer it because I actually live in Florida, where they have not federally legalized online gambling. But I have a lot of friends that use it out of state from where I used to live, and it just seems to me like people aren't as crazy about it lately. They seem to want to hang on to their money a little bit more than this time last year, let's say.
And perhaps if anyone here is good with a web scraper or programmatic website scraping, see to what extent you can root around or spider DraftKings' internal interface to get a sense of how many people are betting and approximately the size on a dollar basis of the sum of all their bets. Because DraftKings takes a cut off of every bet, if I remember correctly. So you can guesstimate what the revenue would be.
I feel like we had this discussion last year, but from what I experienced, I don't think the Super Bowl is a big mover for the stock exactly. Just like any major event doesn't really move the stock like you think.
I completely agree. I think it was, 4 or 5 years ago when DraftKings had their Super Bowl ad? It helped, but not enough. And the stock tanked afterward.
If you want to think out of the box, maybe stuff like Fubo TV, but I don't really know much about it.
So what's the portfolio saying, guys? Good, bad news?
If anybody trades on Robinhood, I gave you some 60 put liquidity. Anybody wants 13 contracts for 10 cents, I'll sell them to you. Get you in on the trade. $130. Your boy fresh.
Ooh, sounds good. Sounds like a good deal. I'll take it. I'll take it off your hands.
I think the bid's by 5 by 15. So I'm throwing you a little something in there.
Fed Bowman just said, Governor Bowman said they're going to have to continue increasing interest rates this morning, just now.
Yeah, but to how much? The current consensus, what is between 5 and 5.5? So basically, you have 2 more raises left.
Yeah, we knew that. Powell said the same thing. Keep raising rates.
So Coke earnings are tomorrow pre-market. I played a put credit spread on Pepsi when they reported, and they've been doing pretty good. They beat EPS. Expected was 1.65, and then the actual was 1.67. Um, so I've heard last week where you guys were talking about if one company does good and then they're in the same market, uh, will like the other like not do as well because they're basically competing for the same, like they have similar products. So Pepsi, right? They saw volume fall um, for most of their products, but it was only slightly by like 2% on like their beverages. But then on their zero Pepsi drink, the volume went up by 26%. So Coke, on relating this to Coke, I'm asking you guys, what do you guys think about like Coke earnings tomorrow? Pepsi looks like it's doing pretty good. They beat, they raised prices. They expect inflationary pressures to continue. Uh, I'm thinking Coke might say something similar. So I'm kind of bullish on Coke for tomorrow. What do you guys think?
Holding Coke for since it's recession proof, I'm gonna say, it's not a bad idea. But if you're looking for short term, I'm not sure on that.
So what's your
Uh,
horizon?
Yeah.
for Pepsi, right? I played a put credit spread. I did the 421 expiration date. I sold 1 second. So I bought the 170 put and then I sold the 185 put, and right now it's up 25%. I'm thinking of holding it. So I don't like if you look at the charts for Pepsi and Coke, uh it looks like they're down for now, like short term they're down. So with earnings, if they report good earnings, it looks and Pepsi did. Um so Pepsi's looking like it might bounce. So I'm thinking the same thing might happen with Coke. So like time horizon would be like a couple months, like maybe like 4 months, depending on prices. I haven't looked at the contracts yet.
If I recall, last time Coke said that they were able to pass on most of their cost increases to the consumer. Last time they reported earnings, was Coke the one that said that, or was that Pepsi?
If you're asking me, I'm not sure.
I'm asking anyone that might know. But yeah, I think it was Coke that said that they were able to pass on most of the cost increases related to supply chain issues to consumers, and assumably some of those issues have like unwound themselves and they're able to get supplies again. So if they're still charging the same amount, then their profit should be pretty good.
Uh, I don't. I've heard that like with companies like these, they were able to pass down costs to the consumer for a while, but then it's getting to that point where they can't anymore. So they're like trying to find out ways to increase their earnings, maybe by like uh, bringing up production costs.
But those cost increases, if I'm not mistaken, were related to supply chain issues with the supplies that they use for their products. So if like COVID and everything, the restrictions are being lifted and things are getting better from a supply chain standpoint, and they don't really have to increase the costs anymore. If the cost of their supplies and the cost of them getting product to market have decreased a little bit since then, and they're still keeping the price the same, then they should have pretty decent profits because they're not lowering the cost, but their input costs have gone down.
I wanted to ask Hardy. I think it was you. I think last week you said something about if two companies are. I forget which company it was, but you said something about if two companies are in the same market and then one does really well. I think it was Uber and Lyft. Now that I'm thinking more about it, you said if one company does well, does that mean like the other won't do as well since they're in the same market? Do you think like this applies here?
I said that earlier today between Wyndham and Marriott. It so happens that Marriott is reporting earnings before Wyndham, and the two stocks roughly move in tandem. So theoretically, big upsies for Marriott means medium upsies for Wyndham ahead of Wyndham's earnings. And the inverse is also true. Big downsies for Marriott means medium downsies for Wyndham.
So were you being like general or just
This
like
is a this is a broad characterization of how markets can move in your favor, or how you can take advantage of an earnings announcement without IV crush.
I think he's saying that if Lyft did bad, that means Uber did good because they took market share versus the market being good or bad as a whole for both companies. That's his question.
Oh, I see. In that case, not necessarily. Keep in mind that Uber is in more businesses than Lyft. Lyft only does the rideshare. Uber
okay.
does eats,
just
freight, and
to
logistics.
interrupt you real quick, my app just crashed. I don't know why it randomly does that. So if you could just repeat like the last 2 seconds.
So companies in the same industry generally mirror each other. So in the case that I gave, in the example I gave earlier today, Marriott announces earnings before Wyndham announces earnings. So assuming Marriott does extraordinarily well, Wyndham, and the price goes up, Wyndham's price may very well go up a similar amount in sympathy with
Yeah,
Marriott,
yeah,
with
I
the
got that.
expectation that earnings are the same.
I got that. I meant like relating it to Coke. Do you have like
Oh,
do
to
you
Coke.
believe yeah. Do you
So
believe like this is a similar situation?
probably, but part of the problem is that Coke and Pepsi are part of a duopoly in this space. So that unlike the hotel chains where there's at least 5 publicly traded hotel chains, in the beverage space, I only know really, in the non-alcoholic beverage space, I only really know of Coke and Pepsi. I couldn't name others. I'm sure they exist, I just couldn't name them.
Right. So you think based off that you would say that it applies even more? Or like I meant
I
like
wouldn't
the
say that
opposite the
because Coke
opposite?
and I wouldn't say they apply at all because at least in this very specific case between Coke and Pepsi, their distribution doesn't overlap. Certain countries like Pepsi more, like India, certain countries like Coke more, like Mexico. And so the growth of one or the decline in another is not really easy to model. A Coke declining in Mexico does not automatically mean Pepsi gets more market share, for example.
I'd also say people are creatures of habit when it comes to buying those beverages, and it's more a reflection of is are people spending more or less in the industry versus is someone taking market share, at least in the short term.
The other thing to think about is, at least in this market, the world is pretty much saturated in either Coke and or Pepsi. So in order for these companies to continue growing, they either get more customers or they increase the average value of every customer. Now, if you run out of people in the world, you can't really do number one, so you try to do number two. And that's pretty much what Coke's been doing with their freestyle machines. I don't know if Pepsi has something similar.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate
So that's
the
an
input.
important distinction or differentiation between the two companies. So I'm not entirely sure the thesis that I gave out for Marriott and Wyndham would apply to Coke and Pepsi.
All right, thanks.
Hey, whoever told me to stay off those Airbnb puts last Friday, man, props to you. I would have got wrecked.
I think you're being sarcastic.
Well, if you bought puts on Friday, market's currently up for Airbnb. So
No, I'm not being sarcastic at all. I'm being serious.
So this morning I was reading that they think the market sentiment is that CPI is going to be higher than usual. You guys agree with that? Well, not usual, higher than expected.
Wasn't Hardy confirming something regarding CPI? I think it's going to be higher because that's
they haven't responded, so
oh
nothing, no updates there.
well. My guess is I think it's going to be higher. I mean, if they had to revise the data, I think it's going to be high.
What parts are going up? I saw a lot of data. Prices were going down, like housing, used cars, eggs.
Isn't 40% of the CPI data housing, like rents? Because if that's the case, if most of the or a large chunk of the CPI data is rents, then
So housing rents are going up.
well, I would say that regarding rents, it's going to slow down and it's not going to drop. It's just going to have a steady slowdown
Is
for
it
CPI
rent
data.
or cost of housing for which rent is a component?
I thought it was rents.
I believe it's rent plus a implied rental charge for owned housing. It's both.
Correct.
So it's going down, but not as much as expected.
Well, it's going to take a long time for that to go down because if you find a lease agreement to rent your apartment or whatever, and it's a 12-month agreement, then just because the prices have gone down for people that are currently signing agreements, you're still stuck in your old rent.
No, I mean the CPI. They said they thought the CPI was going to be higher than normal.
Well, yeah, just considering because they had to revise it recently, I would figure it's going to go higher. That's the only thing I'm basing it on.
Okay.
But overall, I think it's just going to be a slow downward trend for CPI since most of it consists of housing, and housing just moves slow, including rents. They just move slow.
Well, there's the core, and then there's the overall. I know for food and gas have gone up still.
I thought they excluded gas. Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought they excluded like energy and gas.
They have two numbers for it. They have the core, and then they have the overall.
Okay, so gas is included in the overall or on the core?
I believe gas is included in overall, like everything.
Okay.
I don't know where you guys live, but gas prices are going up for me.
Same. I mean, in the last month, they've gone up from like over here where I am, they've gone up from like $2.59 to over $3.19 right now. It's like over 25% increase in 1 month.
$2.59. Oh, that sounds amazing.
I mean, with Russia cutting production, shouldn't
That's
it
what
be
it was
getting
right
higher?
around. Yeah, that's what it was right around Christmas.
So last week.
But we're past that now.
Last week, you guys were talking about Solar Edge, and apparently how they like shit the bed every time they report for solar companies, and I think they report today. Yeah, today.
Yeah, and Enphase didn't really pop, but it had like awesome earnings. Solar Edge should have awesome earnings. I don't know what I don't know what to expect in the short term and all the noise, but long term, those two will make you a lot of money.
Wait, wait. Okay, so now you think the I know you said long term, but last week we were saying how like normally Solar Edge reports and then all the short term, obviously all the solar companies go down with it.
Yeah, and they already went down like after Enphase did earnings. Well, I mean, Enphase did. Solar Edge is going up today. Enphase is going down. This short-term noise is hard to figure out. I was guessing that Enphase would pop. Somebody said no 10%. They were more right. I don't know how to judge these short-term sentiments, this animal spirit stuff. But over the long term, I know that industry is making a lot of money.
So on gas prices, I got one thing to say on that. The general consensus is that over the long term, gas prices are going to be going up because BP and all those big companies pulled out of Russia, and they have a lot of wells there, and they don't know that Russia necessarily knows how to run the wells correctly, and if something happens and basically the way their land is the well will freeze, and they basically will have to re-drill the well, and last time that happened it was like a huge nightmare. So that's what I heard about it.
So are you talking about natural gas prices or gasoline prices at the pump?
Both.
Yeah. So will that be in the CPI report?
No, I mean the gas prices are what they are. I mean that future stuff. Yeah, I mean that hasn't happened yet. That's hypothetical stuff that can happen in the future.
It's speculation, but it's happened before.
But it didn't happen in the last 30 days, so it's not going to be included in the CPI. It's longer term speculation on the price of
Yeah,
gas.
no, that's I said it was long term.
Yeah, yeah.
Another thing on Russia is they purged all of their like high leaders. There's basically like 300 people who run the country right now, and they're all pretty old. So there's nobody. There's nobody to like replace them. There's nobody like if Vladimir Putin goes, there's nobody like to take his spot. So that's another.
Yes, there is. It's no different than the United States. Look at our senators and stuff like that. They have people there to replace them. Medvedev comes to mind immediately.
I disagree.
Well, yeah, finish what you were saying. They have no one to replace them, and what?
So Putin purged everybody that had like any aspiration to like move up to kind of like safeguard himself. So there's
Anybody that would disagree with him, right?
Right. So the next generation down, which would be like the millennials, there's nobody there that's like there to replace them, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it makes sense. He's got a bunch of sycophants working for him, and there's no one that can.
Yeah, and there's
dummies.
speculation.
Just a bunch of dummies.
There's a lot of speculation that he's having a lot of health problems, that he's on steroids and stuff because he's all bloated.
He could be an AI for freaking 20 years after he dies, as far as we know. Stupid.
So what's the play based off the speculation? Putin too old and too sick. Russia soon end war when Putin die. Like what's the play?
Basically, that the Russia is just going to collapse. Basically,
Yeah, volatility. Just expect volatility and craziness.
That the entire nation of Russia is going to implode?
I mean, it happened 30 years ago.
Or that anything could happen, and
That it could break up. Certain areas could claim independence. There could be a lot of war could happen. Any number of things could happen.
Yeah, I think that's a little too speculative to make any plays on right now.
I mean, I disagree on that comment though. That there's nobody to succeed Putin.
The same things with China. Nobody wants to bring Xi bad news. So. And he basically wiped out the other faction that was in the CCP. So China's in the same boat.
Yeah, that's kind of disingenuous to all the people in those countries. But okay.
I guess I can't see a scenario where Putin doesn't fight till the bitter end and he's removed. That's the end game, right?
Yeah, no, they're going to be in it until Putin dies.
Yeah, that's the answer.
like Afghanistan, it'll be their Afghanistan. Or are they Vietnam? They'll just be sitting there fighting this war, losing money, and
Well, I don't think he can survive domestically, politically, if he just says we lost the war. I mean, he's out then, right? So he's just going to fight until the end.
He doesn't have. Okay. Wow, this is getting a little speculative, but just keep in mind, like he can win, quote unquote, the war in many ways. He can easily just come out and say, "Hey, we got rid of all the Nazis in Ukraine. We did it, guys. Fascism defeated. Way to go. We're coming back home." Like he could just make that a headline one day, and probably save face. I mean, I don't know exactly because I don't know all the Russian sentiment, but like, if that's still the going narrative of why they're there, that's a very printable headline that they can just start putting on papers. Like, won a battle, hey, Nazis defeated, we got their leaders. All right, guys, let's go. So this don't get too speculative that like Putin just has no outs.
Yeah, but then they take back the land and they're back at square one.
But it was that the initial war in Russia wasn't about taking land. It was Ukraine has Nazis that need to be stopped because they're fascists. And we need to eliminate the fascist forces that are going to be a problem. It was never, the narrative sold was never a land grab. It was, we're hunting Nazis.
No, I disagree. They want land that's economically valuable to them.
No,
the narrative is different than what they wanted.
Yes, they want
He
land.
said the way they sold it to his people was by saying, these are Nazis, let's invade. But what they wanted was the resources and some kind of ego thing for Putin to reunite Russia.
Putin wants a warm water port. But what I'm saying is, as far as like, could they get out of this war without claiming land? Yes, because the narrative sold to the public wasn't, we're taking our warm water port, we're going to secure all of Crimea so that we don't have to worry about winter freezing over for shipping purposes. It was just, we're hunting Nazis. So all they have to do is just say, we got the Nazis, and then put a little bit of stuff out about how they got the Nazis, and they could technically end it.
I got you.
I don't think they can just walk away from the war. I think there's reparations that will be paid, and I think they lose land.
If this ego lets them do that as well.
I'm speaking purely from a local Russian population sentiment right here. I'm not speaking about like how the West would view it or anything. I'm just saying like within their populace, if they could technically pull the card of just like, we got the Nazis, we did it, guys, fascism's been defeated, and that would probably play to the population because that was the opening story. Kind of the same way that like the US could have technically left Afghanistan and been like, we got bin Laden, game over, we won, guys.
No, it was Bush. Remember, Bush landed on the aircraft carrier and said, "We won the war in Afghanistan." Like days after it started, and then a decade later, we're the Taliban sends the U.S. Army running with and leaving the equipment behind. Regardless of what they say in the papers, as someone from a former communist country, those people are probably more distrustful of anything that's in the paper than Americans are. So whether they print a good story or a bad story, people over there aren't going to believe it. It doesn't matter what they put in the paper. People just aren't going to. I mean, the people are going to be reluctant to believe anything they read over there.
Seems to be a pattern with citizens not believing what their governments are saying.
All right, on a more plays-related note, Bed Bath & Beyond is down 10%. I know that's a very popular stock to talk about. No,
I heard they got $1 billion from some hedge fund or something to buy stock that's like really cheap, but they can't sell it unless the stock stays above 67 cents or something like that. Has anybody heard that? They got saved. They got saved from declaring bankruptcy.
I'd heard they were trying to get $1 billion, but I hadn't heard any success of it. I just heard there was an attempt for it.
I thought they did get a convertible preferred done, but I have to go verify that.
I think they got a convertible preferred, but if memory serves, it wasn't for the full billion. It was like 250 million, and they're still trying to find the rest.
Yeah, it's gross proceeds of 225 million.
Yeah, so as far as I know, they're still trying to find the rest to get to $1 billion, but that's like the start.
Are there any YOLO plays anybody's doing? Maybe high IV plays?
Plenty of earnings coming out after market today. Take your pick.
Yeah, I was looking at Car, and I believe there's another one I was keeping an eye on. Palantir, I think.
Are you feeling bullish or bearish towards those companies?
I'm not sure. I know Car has a high implied movement. Palantir, I would say I'm bullish. Car, I'm 50-50 on. I haven't decided. I'm not sure if anybody has insights on either stock.
Palantir has earnings, right? I saw something about they're going to have low earnings report.
Really?
Yeah.
I wonder why
Well,
they're struggling so much.
for the first time ever, I have seen Palantir's advertisement about his CEO on like YouTube ads and all that, and never before have I seen it. So I don't know.
The thing that I'll always remember about Palantir is when they just started buying up a bunch of gold. They just kept like buying physical gold over and over again. It was like the strangest thing in the world to see. I don't even know if they're still doing it, but they were doing it for a while.
Not unlike Michael Saylor buying up Bitcoin all the time, MicroStrategy buying up Bitcoin all the time. Although Bitcoin is a better choice. If you have a choice between buying gold and Bitcoin, I would say buy Bitcoin.
Whatever happened with Michael Saylor? Is he still alive?
Oh yeah, doing well. The recent pop in Bitcoin should help them out.
I would have sworn he got margin called or something by now.
What's the next NFT type play? You can get in early.
You said NFTs.
Yeah, what's the next NFT type play? You can
I don't know. I've
get
just been
in
waiting
early
for
on.
like Bored Apes and the top 2 popular NFTs ever. I'm waiting for them to just dump
I've
before I
heard
buy.
like popular like I think it was Justin Bieber. I think he paid like 1 point something million, and then his NFT now is worth like 100K or something like that. Something crazy. I don't know
Probably
the
worth
exact
less.
numbers. I don't know the exact numbers, but it was something insane
It's
that
probably
I seen a while
$100.
ago, which makes me, I don't know, like crypto now feels like it's low.
So the last thing I'll say about NFTs is think of it like when crypto was first pumping, right? Like Bitcoin and Ethereum were the top 2 most popular combos at the time. So treat NFTs the same, where the top 2 NFTs. Wait till those
First of
drop
all,
90% and then go from
First of
there.
all, don't put Bitcoin and Ethereum and NFTs into the same category because they're
I was
nothing
using
alike.
an example. I wasn't comparing.
I mean, they're NFTs are more like Ethereum. It's another form of fiat with crypto lipstick.
My point when there's a new sector, the top 2 will always do well on the next run. So it's crashed a lot. The 2 popular NFTs, Bored Apes being one of them, I'm waiting until those collapse completely, and then you load those up for the next run up. Similar to what people did with Bitcoin and Ethereum after they collapsed.
He's basically saying focus on the biggest ones.
Correct. Don't worry about the other ones. You're going to get creamed on them. Just the top 2, specifically the top 1, if you have the money for it.
Just a second.
I wouldn't touch anything in crypto that's facilitating the crypto to other people, the lending of crypto to other people for speculation.
Like Coinbase.
I mean, there's lots of them out there, but the U.S. government does not like that happening, and they're targeting it. Kraken has stopped facilitating the staking currently, and I think that the Fed is the regulatory bodies are going after that.
Seems like every time crypto pops, the government gets on their case. I don't know why.
Could be we only hear it when it pops. And the government's just always on their case. But yeah, did the SEC win the battle, or is the CFTC now in charge? I suspect it's the latter.
I saw something where they told them don't expect any bailouts from federal governments if you guys have issues.
I mean, that makes sense. Operate in an unregulated manner. Don't pay anything. It's like not paying for insurance and expecting to be insured.
Another thing I'm bullish on, like long term, obviously, is chips, like chip companies, AMD, Nvidia. I feel like the more advanced technology gets, the more chips it's gonna use. And if you look at their earnings and all that, they have a lot of pricing power. Therefore, they can like weather the inflationary aspects.
All right, boys. I think it's getting late. It's already 10:14 a.m. Time to wrap up the call. What do you think? Other plays we got?
I'm going in SPY puts.
Triangle on
Split.
Redfin, really high IV. Who knows what will happen?
The volume seems low on Redfin, but IV is indicating a high move for sure on Redfin. But besides SPY puts for right now, I'm out. Thanks, opinion.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for listening in. We'll see you all tomorrow, same time as always, 8:30 a.m. Eastern. Cheers, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.